So there I was in 2018 listening to the priest talk about how addiction has been taking over the lives of good people in America. And one of those lives was a good friend of mine. He was 21 years old and he overdosed from fentanyl. We had no idea that he was addicted to anything. He didn't make it clear to anyone that he was having a problem, but he was prescribed a pain medication for his knee surgery about a year earlier, and apparently the medication just never stopped coming. Everyone in this class, and including the teacher and myself, have at least known someone, if not have had it personally been prescribed to them, a pain medication such as Oxycontin, Percocet, hydrocodone. These are all severely addictive pain medications that pharmaceutical companies push on hospitals and medical salesmen in the late 90s and early 2000s, knowing that it was going to be severely addictive. They didn't care, they just wanted the money, and they have made billions of dollars off of the backs of those that are getting addicted and dying from this insane medicine. So the misuse of prescribed opioids is far worse of a problem in America than the misuse of non-prescribed opioids such as heroin. The prescribed opioids such as Percocets and Oxycontins are actually taking a lot more American lives and putting a lot more people into addiction programs than heroin and the use of heroin. Only 4 to 6% of people use heroin when they've been prescribed an opioid at an earlier time, while 21 to 29% of people misuse a prescription opioid that they are prescribed. So really only 4 to 6% of people are getting addicted to real opioids, like the bad ones, heroin, fentanyl, ones that are basically synthetically made in a lab, not by a medical professional or pharmaceutical company. But almost 30% of people are misusing their drugs when they are prescribed by their doctor. Most likely because anyone who is a civilian would trust their medical professional to prescribe them a medicine that is not severely addictive and that is the most helpful and least harmful that it could be. But that is not the case. And it is not just on a burden of the people, but it has costed America as a whole over $500 billion since opioids became prescribed in America. It has costed America $500 billion to start programs to aid with prevention, to start programs to aid with addiction, to start programs to aid with a possible new drug to replace opioids. But none of that has happened so far. Opioids are still on the shelves. You can still get prescribed to even morphine after a surgery. So clearly, the facts that are represented by the data, they make it seem as though prescribed drugs are much more of a problem than non-prescribed drugs, even though in the media, one would probably see that people are overdosing from heroin far more than they are from Percocet, but that is not the case. Big pharmaceutical companies have a huge hand to play in the fact that so many people are dying from opioid addiction. In 2015, there were over 33,000 overdose deaths, and that's according to an article written directly from the White House called The Underestimated Cost of the Opioid Crisis. And some people may think that the opioid crisis is probably just among people that are either older or younger, but no, anyone from ages 15 to 65 years old can be affected by opioid addiction at any time, because they are the ones that are typically being prescribed to opioids. The pharmaceutical companies and doctors that have long profited off of opioid addiction should have to be the ones to come up with a solution to the opioid problems rather than having it be on the backs of the people that are actually addicted themselves. They need the help They got put in this place by medical professionals that need to take responsibility for their own greed. Corporate greed plays a huge hand in the fact that about 30% of the people that are prescribed opioids misuse them. They are not being prescribed in the correct manner, and therefore they are not being used in the correct manner. Think about if your brother, your mother, your father, your sister, think about if they went in for a surgery and they needed to be prescribed opioids. Wouldn't you rather than be prescribed something that's less addictive and more helpful? It's a possibility, but all of the money in pharmaceuticals and big pharmaceutical has gone towards opioids since 1999. And from 1999 to 2015, opioid addiction has done nothing but increase in every single demographic in America. Man, woman, child, elderly, doesn't matter. Every single demographic has had an increase in opioid addiction and opioid overdose since 1999. And that is according to the drug abuse prevention website. It's drugabuse.gov. You should go and look it up. It's a great place to have resources from. And really, in closing, my biggest thing is that I've had two friends of mine, one old, one young, that have passed away from opioid addiction and misuse, and both of them were prescribed by a doctor to opioids. It wasn't something that they picked up off the street. It wasn't something that they went around to the corner and bought from a drug dealer. It's something that their medical professional prescribed to them directly. And I would be using a visual aid, but I do not have one, and I'm sorry. Thank you.